at the planning table. That's the wing. And the only mention of DHW3B and DHW3 is on this plan. So the only thing we've got to go by is 1/8 ply temporarily tacked in place before initial geodetics. So what that does, along with the little piece of ply there, supplies support to the torque tube for the flaps. So it's not mentioned in the write-up at all about that. It's not mentioned on the other plans. This is the only set that actually has that. So here's what happens with that. Got the wing over here. There's a little piece of ply that just goes in here. Now, it doesn't mention how to do this or anything. I looked on Danielle's and I saw a picture of she cut it around the geodetics. So I've got the top geodetic in, and that's on the bottom. And then I'm fitting this piece in like that, so I have to notch around the geodetic there to get that into place. It's DHW3. So I've got that notched into place. Then I have to try to figure out where the top geodetic is going to go. So I put one on here loosely about where it's going to go, and then I put it on the other way to figure out loosely where it's going to go, and I've got those marked. I'll cut out that little bit, then I can glue this into place, then I can glue the bottom geodetics into place so I can get my washout done on the wing. But you have to put that thing in first, and then somewhere in here there's going to be a cutout for the torque tube itself. So the hole for the torque tube, and then there's going to be that other little piece of backing on there, 1/8 or 1/4 to add more backing on there. But we don't know where that goes until you put, I'm assuming, getting ready to put the torque tube in where it's supposed to go. I've got the measurements for that. I think it said 8 inches back and then 1.5 inches up from the bottom. So I'll mark that. I'll cut the hole there, I guess, where it's roughly going to go. You won't know, and it's what it says on the plans. Don't put it in until the torque tube's ready to go in. But you have to put the geodetics in, and I could put all that in with the geodetics, but then trying to get a drill in to drill that hole out for the torque tube is going to be a nightmare. Although I do still have to cut out the geodetics to put the tank in. But if you didn't have to put the tank in, then you would have to cut that right now. So that's what I'm working on today, is figuring out where this thing goes, what kind of cuts need to be made to get around the geodetic, up and down, glue it into place, and cut the hole in there for the flap torque tube. All right, let's see what we can do. Well, that's roughly where the geodetics are going to sit. So that little cutout seems to work okay. So I'm going to go with that. I think that should work pretty good. I'll try that for now. I might make a little more on this side here just to give that one geodetic a little more play in there. Flap torque tube is sitting somewhere in there. 8 inches back from the spar and 1 7/8 inches down, that's where the center of the torque tube will be. This is a bushing, I'm assuming, for the torque tube. The torque tube just rides on wood, so it's just metal on wood. There is nothing else in there. There's no plastic or anything else from what I see in the plans. This will mount on here eventually, but they want you to wait until the wings are fitted to the plane to put this in its final position, because it's going to move a little bit depending on where it comes out of the plane. This gets mounted onto here on the back side, but there's this little support in the way. Now I'm going to slip it in back behind here, and I'm going to cut out on the back side the T-support, so this will slide through past this and it'll move around in there for the final placement. This is a 1-inch hole, that's a 1-inch tube, that's no problem. This hole will have to be bigger because you can't cut it afterwards, and it's going to have to move around for the final fitting on there. So I'll maybe do 1 1/8 inches or 1 1/4 inches there. That gives 1/8 of an inch in all directions for movement if it has to move a bit. The same procedure for here. When you have the plywood on the end of the ring there, you're going to have a hole in there at the same spot. The same kind of bushing will be on there, and it's going to move to wherever you need it to glue it into its final position. That's what I get from the plans, because it really doesn't say anything in the plans. The only thing mentioned in the plans is refer to the print and note the position of the outboard flap torque tube support and the inboard flap tube torque support. These are now glued and clamped in position for drying, and that's it. So I'm assuming they mean that big piece and the piece that would go here, but not the small piece, because they say to wait on the drawings. They say wait until the wing is fitted to the plane for the final placement of the DHW, whatever these little supports are, the bushings. So that's what we're going to do anyways. I'm going to glue that one into place. I'm going to put a 1 1/4 hole in there, centered where it's theoretically going to be. And then when the wings are all fitted, we'll put in the torque tube bushing and glue it into position to hold that torque tube exactly where it's going to go. Since it's mounted onto the plane, there could be a little this way or that way, and you want it exactly right so there's no binding on there, since it's not a bearing or anything, it's just wood. So you want it as perfectly straight as possible, I'm assuming, because again, the plans don't tell you at all. Okay, more to come. All right, the rib stiffener, spacer, whatever is in there, it fits. The JetX work, they go right through there, nice. I have, what I did is sanded this and sanded a bit on the bushing, I guess we're going to call it, so that will actually fit in there. Should fit in there. Come in from this side. Okay, like that. So that when we put the torque tube through there, it'll ride on that. Again, it's just riding on wood, so I'm not a big fan of that, but I guess that's good enough because the flaps are rarely used. So that's how that'll sit. I've drilled these out. Both of them I've drilled out to 1 inch right now. And I put the flapper wheel on there and reamed it out a little bit more so the torque tube just goes through there. And what we'll have to do is wait till the end when the wings are mounted to figure out exactly where it has to go. I might have to ream it in one direction a little bit more than the others, so that it fits on there nice and tight, and that's when we glue the bushing on in whatever spot that it has to be made permanent. All right, so that is that little doohickey. I'm going to turn the wing over and I'll just have to sand along the curve of the ribs for the top of that. These are nice and flush here, so I'm not worried about that. So that is that little piece. DHW3 is in place. And also had that little block in there as well. Again, it's not mentioned on the plans. It's not mentioned in the instructions. The only place you see that block is on that one set of plans. And that's it. So, unless you're looking specifically at that one when you do these things, you wouldn't even know. All right, another day.